Breaking news! In the last few hours, we received news that has generated a lot of discussion among analysts and fans of the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel is preparing a replacement, as everything indicates that we will have a dismissal soon. Well, we have a lot to talk about. But before I tell you all the details, hit the like button if you agree that Tua Tagovailoa should be replaced too. Man, in my opinion, it's time for him to go. What's your opinion on this? If possible, write it like this: the Miami Dolphins need new blood. Now, let's start talking about another subject. It seems that the Dolphins are preparing for life without left tackle Terron Armstead. Now, this isn't a huge shock. Armstead has battled injuries throughout his career and, at 33 years old, durability has been a concern. But McDaniel's comments make it clear that the team is moving forward with second-year tackle Patrick Paul as the guy to protect Tua Tagovailoa's blind side. This move for Paul makes sense. The Dolphins spent a second-round pick on him in the 2024 NFL Draft, and if you're spending that kind of capital on a lineman, you expect him to start at some point. McDaniel confirmed that while Armstead hasn't officially announced his retirement, the Dolphins are proceeding as if he won't play in 2025. It's a new era on the offensive line, and Miami appears ready to roll with youth over experience. But then came an unexpected twist. Armstead did the Dolphins a massive favor. According to Ian Rappaport, the veteran tackle restructured his contract, taking his salary down to the league minimum. This move freed up nearly $14 million in cap space, giving Miami some much-needed breathing room ahead of free agency. That's a classy move from Armstead, whether or not he ultimately decides to return. So where does this leave Miami financially? Before this contract adjustment, the Dolphins were barely cap compliant. Now, with this new cap space, they sit at around $15 million available. That's not a massive number, but it's enough to start making moves. Even more interesting, there's a clear pathway for the Dolphins to create up to $57 million in cap space without cutting a single player. How? Restructuring deals for key players like Bradley Chubb, Tua Tagovailoa, Austin Jackson, Zach Sealer, and potentially even Tyreek Hill. It's a strategic game, but the Dolphins have options. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, McDaniel also addressed the star wide receiver's injury situation. There had been speculation that Hill underwent wrist surgery earlier this offseason, and McDaniel confirmed it. The injury was to a ligament, not a fracture, and while Hill will miss some time catching footballs, he's expected to be running and training soon. By summer, he should be back to full speed in time for training camp. Hill himself seemed to hint at the surgery last weekend when he posted a photo of his wrist wrapped up in a cast. It's clear that he played through pain last season, but fans shouldn't worry. McDaniel made it sound like Hill's recovery timeline is right on track. However, don't expect to see him at OTAs or mandatory minicamp. The Dolphins will likely take it slow with their top offensive weapon. Now, let's talk about another major roster move, safety Jevon Holland. If you're hoping for him to return to Miami, you might want to brace yourself. McDaniel's comments all but confirmed that Holland is heading to free agency, and the Dolphins are unlikely to match his market value. When a coach says he's earned the right to test his market, that's usually code for we're not paying what he's about to get. Holland has been a strong player for Miami since being drafted in 2020, but his price tag is expected to be in the range of $18 to $20 million per year. That's a big number for a team that still has holes to fill at cornerback, defensive line, and offensive guard. Instead of committing that kind of money to one player, the Dolphins could take a different approach, signing multiple safeties for the same price. Names like Andre Cisco and Julian Blackmon are floating around as potential targets. If Miami can land two quality safeties at $8 to $10 million per year each, that might be a smarter investment than paying top dollar for Holland. Depth and versatility are key, and this strategy could allow the Dolphins to strengthen multiple areas of their defense. It's clear that Miami is in for a transformative offseason. The departure of Armstead, the uncertainty around Hill's recovery, and the likely loss of Holland are just the beginning. But with smart financial moves and a clear plan in place, the Dolphins front office is positioning the team to be competitive in 2025. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you feel about these moves? Are you excited to see Patrick Paul take over at left tackle? Do you think the Dolphins should restructure more contracts to create additional cap space? And what about Jevon Holland? Would you rather pay him top dollar or sign multiple safeties instead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get the conversation going. One of the biggest questions surrounding the Miami Dolphins right now is how they plan to navigate free agency and the draft with their current cap situation. With Terron Armstead restructuring his contract, Miami has a bit more financial flexibility, but they're still operating with limited cap space. If they want to make serious moves, they'll have to continue restructuring contracts or make some tough decisions on key players. One of the most intriguing possibilities is whether the Dolphins will restructure Tua Tagovailoa's contract. Tua is entering the final year of his rookie deal, and while Miami could let him play out the season under his current contract, a long-term extension could help lower his cap hit for 2025. The risk, of course, is committing to a quarterback before seeing how he performs in another full season. But if the Dolphins truly believe Tua is their franchise guy, extending him now could free up additional space to address other needs this offseason. And let's be honest, if Miami wants to compete with teams like the Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills in the AFC, they need to improve in multiple areas. The offensive line has been an issue for years, and even with Patrick Paul stepping in at left tackle, the Dolphins still need to figure out their guard situation. The defensive line also needs reinforcements, especially with Christian Wilkins hitting free agency. The same goes for cornerback. Xavier Howard is gone, and Miami can't afford to go into the season thin at one of the most important positions on the field. This brings us to the big question. Should Miami go all in this offseason, or should they take a more conservative approach? If they restructure multiple contracts, like Bradley Chubb, Austin Jackson, and Tyreek Hill, they could create up to $57 million in cap space. That's a massive amount of money to play with in free agency. But restructuring contracts means pushing money into future seasons, which could create financial headaches down the road. It's a gamble, but it's one the Dolphins might have to take if they want to keep their championship window open. Now, let's talk about potential free agent targets. If Miami wants to replace Holland at safety, there are plenty of options on the market. Andre Cisco and Julian Blackmon are two names that have been mentioned, but Miami could also look at veterans like Jordan Whitehead or Xavier McKinney. Another intriguing option? Bringing back Brandon Jones, who has been a solid contributor in the past and could be a more affordable option. At cornerback, the Dolphins could target someone like Chidobe Awuzie or Steven Nelson, players who won't break the bank but can provide stability in the secondary. And on the defensive line, there's always the possibility of making a splash signing, but with Wilkins likely gone, the Dolphins might have to look for cheaper alternatives. And then there's the draft. Miami holds the 21st overall pick in the first round, and with so many needs, they could go in multiple directions. If they want to shore up the offensive line, a player like Graham Barton or Troy Fautanu could be in play. If they go defense, a cornerback like Kool-Aid McKinstry or a pass rusher like Jared Verse could be options. There's even an outside chance Miami could target a running back like Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks if they want to add another weapon to the offense. But here's the bottom line. The Dolphins have some tough decisions to make. The next few weeks will determine the direction of the franchise in 2025 and beyond. Will they prioritize keeping their own talent or look elsewhere in free agency? Will they restructure contracts to free up space, or will they take a more measured approach? Dolphins fans, I want to hear from you. What's the best move for Miami this offseason? Should they go all in and restructure deals to maximize their cap space, or should they play it safe and focus on the draft? And who would you like to see the Dolphins target in free agency? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. The Dolphins are making big moves, and the next few weeks will shape the 2025 season. Should Miami go all in, restructure contracts, and make a splash in free agency? Or should they take a conservative approach and build through the draft? What do you think about the potential departure of Jevon Holland and the rise of Patrick Paul at left tackle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for all the latest Dolphins updates. Let's talk Fins football.